We live in Portugal, way out in Portugal, where the signal doesn't really reach us, which is quite the problem when you work online. We'd have to wander around our land looking for a morsel of internet like Signal back in the 90s with a Nokia 3310, and at best you'd find not a lot. There is a random tree in the woods that gives you 4G, don't know why, but that still wasn't very fast, meaning you'd have to leave your phone in there all day and go about your business. All in all, we were living in the Stone Age, which is not ideal. But now you can get the internet from space. Oh yes, with Elon's rockets going up there, there's now Starlink. And on top of that, there's a remote version, Starlink RV. So naturally, we spent our entire 2 months food budget and gave it a punt. What could go wrong? Now this will be getting put through its paces in multiple different ways, as when I said we're off grid, we're really off grid. So yeah, going to get it all set up. It looks pretty standard to physically connect it all up. It's a little bigger than I thought it was. A lot bigger than I thought it was. That's the router. Definitely made for the American RV market where the RVs are huge. In fact, I don't actually think that is any different to the house one. It's just probably got a different set of components in it or something. But yeah, it's huge. But yeah, since day dot we've had issues with the internet here. It's just not very good. When we first come here, there was just nothing at all. We'd have to go and put our phones in a tree to get some 4G. Now there's like the odd spot of decent internet here, but it's few and far between. And when we both work online, we need a decent internet connection. Plus, I'm a huge nerd, so I miss online gaming like there's no tomorrow. I haven't done it properly for like 4 years. Found out just last week that I'm still paying for PlayStation Plus all those years. Fuming. But this will now change all that. It's not by any means cheap. Oh my god, I couldn't believe how much it was. Not only the buying of the equipment, but the monthly cost is a lot. To buy the kit was £580, and then it's £114 a month. But like I said, we sort of got to the point where we just couldn't function. Uploading videos was a nightmare. Emma's now starting to work online, she couldn't do that. I want to do a few other projects online that I can't even get off the ground here. Before I bought this, I actually forked out for another antenna to plug into a MiFi dongle and have all that thing going on. But then we got home, realised this was now available, and it's like, well, let's just not take the risk. It's going to be the fastest internet we could possibly get out here. All the other MiFi stuff had pretty low data limits, and it's quite expensive out here for data and stuff like that. If you start to hear a grunting noise, that is just, yeah, the turbine's firing back up. It does look like that's a sealed unit, and all the plugs, wherever I put it, all the plugs have got rubber gaskets on it, and they all sort of sealed. So this must be an outdoor unit as well, is my guess. Yeah, they both sort of go in there like that, and then that's that. It's done. That's the other one. Oh yeah, that's just reminded me though. That does bring me on to a few points that I was a little disappointed about. One, it's mains. When in a RV adaptation you'd have expected it to be 12 volt. No, it's still mains. I'm going to find out what sort of amps it pulls. That'll be interesting to find out. But yeah, I was a little disappointed in that, to be honest. The only difference between normal Starlink and Starlink RV is that you can pause the service, but the pausing of the service is month by month. So obviously it's all basically designed for people that take their vans away for a certain amount of time and then park it back on the drive and don't use it for ages. Not quite adapted for van lifers and people that live alternate lifestyles. It's still basically, you know, a house kit. But I am told it doesn't draw that much power. So to find that out, I'll plug it into the van and we'll find out what amps it pulls. But if it is just a low draw, then happy days. It does mean having an inverter on all the time while we're having the internet on anyway, which is a bit disappointing, but one of them. Another thing that sort of annoyed me about this whole process was their website of ordering it. It's all designed to be super futuristic and sleek, and there's just a couple of buttons you press and then boom, your order's in. But it just comes off that there's just not enough information about what it is you're buying. And everything goes like that, including the instruction manual. I tell a lie, there is a little bit of instructions, but for 28 languages, that's all you've got. A little square there, and that doesn't give you all the information you need, including power output. Doesn't tell you how much power it takes, which for a off-grid adaptation, I'd quite like to know. But that's just two little things that I can quite easily get over, and if this gives us super fast access to the internet out here in the middle of the Portuguese wilderness, then I'm happy, frankly. Speaking of Portugal, I will get on to actually fitting this and doing this soon, but I did have concerns about how hot this can get. I'm presuming it's designed for that sort of thing, but yeah man, we're out in one of the hotter countries getting into summer. Yeah, hopefully that doesn't cause any issues heat wise for this thing. Right, enough chatting, let's get on to fitting it, shall we? See what happens.
The physical setup takes seconds, it's just 3 plugs. The tricky bit comes with picking the location. The Starlinks can be very particular on how well they work where, so on their app there's a bit that helps you find the optimal area. I was keen to fit this into our trailer workshop just so it was out of the way, and would be powered off the trailer, not my van. But very quickly the Starlink said no. Even the slightest obstruction in a place you'd think would be okay can cause quite heavy outages. So the trailer was very quickly a no-go. The trees all around it are just that bit too tall and block the Starlink's view of the sky. Not all bad though, as the closer it is to the place we work, the faster the internet will be, so I moved on to the van to see how I'd get on there. What's weird is the Starlink doesn't look directly up at the sky, there's a bit of an angle to it, so things you think are going to be fine are in the way, and things you think are going to be in the way are fine. The van was definitely better than the trailer, only 5.43% of obstructions, but there was still a few tops of trees, them red sections on the diagram, which annoyingly is enough to cause issues, especially for online gaming. But this was a new toy that I was desperate to play with, it looked cool on the roof, and I'm a big child, so I thought I'd give it a bash anyway and see if it'd work. With a little bit of faff from the cables, I managed to get it all inside, and would be mounting it on the shelf where my old, now defunct MiFi dongle used to live. That, and I'd have to relocate my Fallout bobblehead for the 18th time. Should probably get rid of it, but
I'm a huge nerd.
All plugged in, let's see how this thing works. With no lights or screen on the router, you were kinda left in the dark to figure this out, and nothing showed up in the Wi-Fi list for ages. Eventually we got there and the app linked to everything, all good, but it was stuck on offline searching and no network found. So I started going through the support area to troubleshoot this first time fire up, but there's a pretty fundamental flaw with this.
The problem with the troubleshooter guide being online is that I need that to be online, therefore I can't get onto the online troubleshooting guide. That's a slight oversight. Now I have to walk around trying to find some internet to get my internet going.
Oh dear. The next few minutes were a 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of affair, but it did start to click over onto online for about 5 seconds and then come back up with this screen. So I put that down to the 5% of obstructions being still too much and moved it down off the van into the field to see how it would get on there. And what do you know, in the lowest part of the land where you thought would be most obstructed, boom, we got internet from space. And I could not believe how fast it was. Even compared to good 4G in a city or even Wi-Fi, this just took the biscuit. And I was keen to see exactly what sort of speeds these were. Now I'm no computer boffin, and lots of you will know more about these figures than me. I just know they're a lot. I also know in the time that we've had it, it's been higher than this, as well as lower. Yeah, location is definitely key. But when you compare it to what we're used to working with, our phone's hotspots, okay, power output, and how much is it drinking? With the van completely shut down, we could see what amps it's pulling. Giving lenience to the conversion rate in the inverter and the fact that I can't turn the CCTV system off, we're looking here at roughly a 4 amp draw, which isn't too bad at all, but not something you want to be leaving on all day. But for us and most camper vans these days, the solar will more than cover that. Now to turn that PlayStation on, link it up to the internet for the first time in 4 years, and update the living hell out of it. And it's goodbye glitches, hello updated games, and a new purpose for that PlayStation subscription I've been paying for. One funky side effect I stumbled across was the fact that CO2 alarms do not like the routers. Again, no idea of the science behind that, but it just keeps throwing up an error. So like a responsible adult, I removed the batteries and got back to enjoying our reintroduction to the 21st century. For those who do not have a functioning frontal lobe, that last piece you saw was a joke. It still works. Yes, everything's okay. Calm down, step away from the keyboard. All is well. Let's continue with everyone else, shall we? In the month and a half that we've had the Starlink running, it has totally transformed the way we work, research and play. We've found that anything under the 5% of obstructions gives minimal outages, but absolutely anything above that and you are in for a world of frustration. But we do live in a more extreme area than most. And being down a valley, it's definitely preferable to have this thing rigged to a pole. The heat of Portugal bears absolutely no effect on it, and it even has a really cool function for the polar opposite. It can melt snow off itself. There's also a stow button to put it in a better position for storage and travelling, and even though the cables can get annoying because they're super long and get tangled quite often, it's really not that bad to set up wherever you are. And lastly, this wouldn't be a Project Amber video if there wasn't some form of balls up, which 1 month into our ownership there definitely was, as Emma put our Starlink through the most brutal rigidity test of its life.
No! No! No!
I'm too angry to talk right now.
1 hour later. So one, not flaw, but area of risk for the Starlink is forget that it's attached into your van, which Emma did, moving her van out of the way to let me back in, and dragged it halfway across the field and up a wall. But I mean, kudos to the build quality, you can't even tell on the antenna that there's any damage at all, and the cable snapped because it got tied off on the deck. She was mortified, bless her, and was straight on to order a new cable at £78. But another bonus of that is the cable does detach on both ends, so you can replace it. But to save us sitting in the Stone Age until that arrives, I'm going to attempt a repair on the cable.
Now this is essentially just Cat5 cable. I've repaired that before, but yeah, we'll see. Hello matey. Can you believe it, eh? Things we find ourselves doing. Yeah, so there was a 10-minute window of blind rage when I saw this. just couldn't actually believe it happened, but it did. But at the end of the day, it was the first time it had ever been plugged into a van, because I left for a night, and so I had the internet. And yeah, first time in a van, we then go away, she comes back, doesn't think about it, so you can't really get angry at her, and she was like properly upset about it. So no jokes sent her on social media, please. It will just upset her. It's not within my usual budget to buy these sorts of things. This was a big purchase for me, and it wasn't any sort of sponsorship, wasn't anything like that. Oh, hello. Yeah, it was a big deal. So to have it break this early on was a sore subject. But yeah, while she's ordering the replacement, she might as well order two, because I'm going to do this one day. There's going to be one day I drive away and drag it halfway down the Portuguese hillside. Right.
I fiddled and farted around for about 20 minutes, reattaching the 9 tiny wires back together. Plugged it back in and there was no bang, so that's good. And then spent what felt like a lifetime waiting to see if it'd breathe any sign of life. Despite the trauma and surgery, it still works. Thank God. And as an added bonus / irony, when we eventually did swap the vans round and tried the Starlink on the roof again, it works great. So that's where it lives from now on. Except of course when we move, there's now a big orange tag on the steering wheel to remind us. So for those of you that have been umming and ahhing on whether to go for the Starlink or not, barring the niggling little issues that I've brought up, overall it's a thumbs up from me. It's brought our tiny little farm right up into the 21st century and has allowed us to work online effortlessly way out in the wilderness. Just watch out for them trees.